But to get us started, we got a little Florida talk, courtesy David Waters, of course, from Gators Breakdown. David, how are we doing tonight?
Pretty good. I'm not a big countdown guy, Mark, but when we're this close, you just can't you can't help but do it.
Longest off season in sports. So you watch the NFL a little bit. I don't know if you're a huge NFL fan. Are you?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 6, 7, somewhere around there.
Okay. The other sports.
So covering Gator stuff. I'm usually so busy doing Gator stuff on Sunday, wrapping up what happened the day before. It's just really hard to get into the NFL now.
I hear you.
I mean, before I started the podcast, I was really into it. But hey, Mark, 5 years I've been doing this, believe it or not. But the last 5 years, it's just my NFL interest is kind of weighing down a little bit.
Oh, I hear you. I'm right there with you. But it's just college football is just the off season is just excruciating how long it is. Where, man, if you're a big NBA fan, my goodness, they play the championship series and they're going to training camp like 3 weeks later. It's crazy. I'm exaggerating, but not by much.
Yes, right.
So, man, we wait forever for college football. Those 12 games are precious on the schedule. Now,
well, and for Florida, you had the bowl game versus Oklahoma. Then you had an early spring practice. We didn't get to see any of it. Florida was one of 2 SEC teams that didn't hold a spring game, them in Kentucky. None of the practices have been open at all in the fall. So we've seen very, very, very little of this Gator team since the Cotton Bowl. Basically the last time we saw this Gator team, any kind of game plan and superstars on the field was the SEC championship game. So it has been a really long time for Gator fans to sit here and say we've seen this team before we see them next Saturday.
And like we've talked about the times that we've gotten together in the offseason, I don't think there is a team that finished last season with more just mixed feelings than Florida football.
Mark, that's what 2020 was. Peaks and valleys.
Peaks and valleys based on what was accomplished on the good side, and then those just crazy events surrounding Texas A&M and the Cotton Bowl and the Mizzou fight and all that. But beat Georgia, won the East, took Alabama to its toughest game down the wire. Now we get a whole new cast of characters to a certain extent on the offense. Before I pin you down with a few specifics here, anything that's transpired in fall camp that's piqued your interest that you think significant?
Anthony Richardson, the backup quarterback, has played really good. And I would say it's not a quarterback controversy. I guess you could say quarterback battle, but it's not really. He's just proven that he can be a really good second quarterback for Florida. That's about the best way to put it. Garrett McGee's actually meeting with the media right now. And before I came right here, he's the quarterback coach. He said Emory Jones is number one quarterback. He is the number one quarterback. He's going to be the starting quarterback next week. So, we've heard in the last couple scrimmages that Florida had that Anthony Richardson played very well. But here's the thing, like I said, we didn't get to see the scrimmages. No eyes were on the scrimmages. I was lucky enough to have people sending me live reports from the scrimmage there, and I was putting them out there. But, saying Anthony Richardson really looked smooth in the offense. The offense looked smooth with him. But, of course, to begin with, it's first team versus first team, and that's Emory Jones going against first team defense, and then it's second team versus second team. So without being there, without seeing it myself, you don't know how they're mixing ones and twos and all that kind of stuff. This is Emory Jones' team. Emory Jones is the quarterback. He'll get first crack at it. But the word is, and I think it's good news to me, I don't think just because you hear the backup quarterback is playing well, that doesn't necessarily mean there's a quarterback controversy that goes along with it. And I think that's where the misnomer for the backup quarterback does well. Everybody automatically kind of just shifts to there's a quarterback battle. Not really. But it's not to say Anthony Richardson could not do well if he had the opportunity to do so. Emory Jones has looked good. I think Dan Mullen's putting him in situations that he needs to learn from. Look, we know what you can do. We know you can run the ball. We know you can throw the ball deep. We need to work on these medium, intermediate, short routes. We need to know you're making the right checks at the line of scrimmage. We need to put you in situations that we think you're going to have trouble with, and you need to come out on top of those. Those are the things they're working on in fall camp, getting ready for the season.
Yeah, my memory of Emory Jones when he was pressed into duty, or when they just had those series in which they would mix him in there, it wasn't like they were afraid to throw the ball downfield, and it wasn't check-off stuff, but it wasn't like necessarily where he had to read a defense and go through the progressions. They had a pretty specific, okay, you're going to throw a slant here, and we think we've got a well schemed play that Pitts is going to be open or whomever, and he throws the ball well. Now,
and
Jones,
part of it before we go, part of it is the lasting memory a lot of people have of Emory Jones is a very so-so Cotton Bowl. That I mean, not to make excuses for Florida or whatever, but there was so much surrounding that game. That was going to be a good game regardless. Florida and Oklahoma was going to be a good game. Florida didn't show up, and that's why you get a blowout. Like I said, it was going to be a good game if Florida played their best game and Oklahoma played their best game. It was going to be a really good football game. Florida played nowhere near their best game, had nowhere near interest playing their best game, and that's what you got. So I don't want people out there to say, well, that's that lasting image of Emory Jones is what you're going to see in 2021.
How do Richardson's and Jones's skill sets compare?
We'll go running the ball a little bit because we know that will be more of a focus for this Dan Mullen offense with these types of quarterbacks. Emory Jones, I'd say more of a slippery runner. Will hit you, but when you see Anthony Richardson, if you didn't know he was a quarterback, you'd say he was a linebacker or a defensive end. That's what he looks like. That's what he brings to the table. But he's fast as well. He's very, very fast for that size. I mean, he's 6'5", 6'6", up in that 230 range. I mean, he is a massive human being, a massive quarterback. So when you see him and you see that, you think of Cam Newton, you think of Tim Tebow. Emory Jones, you're a little more slender, slasher type of runner. They're probably speed, top end speed, they're probably about the same there. Now, as far as arm goes, Emory Jones, live, big arm, can really chuck it down the field. Anthony Richardson, just haven't really got to see a whole lot from him. Really struggled with his completion percentage and accuracy in his first 3 years of high school. Bumped that up over 60% in his final year of high school there before he got injured. I think he played in 6 games in his senior year of high school. Sprinkled in here and there in last year in his freshman. Tough for a freshman quarterback to come in, especially when you're behind Kyle Trask and Emory Jones, and then expect to get a whole lot of reps in practice in a 2020 season where practice reps were very, very meaningful for all the college football teams out there. So very tough for a true freshman to go out there and get a whole lot of experience. But, arm don't really know a whole lot bringing to the table, but running the ball, more of your big body bruiser as Anthony Richardson can do. Emory Jones, that slasher speeds type of runner.
Got David Waters on the line, of course, from Gators Breakdown. And if you're not familiar, please check it out right here on YouTube. So you just go up to the search bar, Gators Breakdown, look it up, because it's an amazing look at Florida football multiple times a week right here on YouTube and also on your favorite audio platform. All right, sticking with the offense, what do we expect the receiver rotation to look like, minus Tony, minus Pitts, quasi tight end, of course? How do the receivers stack up?
Top 2, Jacob Copeland, Justin Shorter. Those 2 guys put up similar stats last year. You're really looking for somebody like Jacob Copeland to break through, Justin Shorter to break through. Justin Shorter is a former 5-star, transferred from Penn State, had his first year at Florida last year, had some big highlight plays, but some big drops as well. Jacob Copeland, case of the drops a good bit last year as well. But those 2 guys, from all accounts, have had really good fall camps. Jacob Copeland was a highly regarded receiver too. But his problem is not really his problem. He's just been behind some really, really good talent. I mean, Florida's put 6 receivers in the NFL the last couple of drafts. Freddie Swain, Josh Hammond, Tyree Cleveland, Van Jefferson, Kadarius Toney, Kyle Pitts in some form or fashion of wide receiver. I mean, Florida's had no issue finding wide receivers. I mean, behind Alabama, you could put them up there we can put them up there with anybody else the last 2 years. So no fault of Jacob Copeland for not being able to necessarily break through when you're sending guys to the NFL. So this is his chance, his year to break through. They're not going to have a Kadarius Toney. They're not going to have a Kyle Pitts. Now, you may have a group effort led by those 2 with Trent Whittemore, Xavier Henderson. Trent Whittemore, somebody I'm really high on, played really well in the first couple games last year before he got injured. Didn't really hear much once he got injured and tried to bounce back a little bit. Xavier Henderson has a high recruiting profile as well. He was a true freshman. He was in that second set of receivers last year. Florida would start the game with Tony, Pitts, and Grimes, and maybe one other receiver. And then they'd platoon a whole second set of receivers in. And Xavier Henderson and Trent Whittemore would be in that big second set along with Justin Shorter last year. So you would think, those two guys just elevate their game, will be that third receiver, be that fourth receiver for the Gators this year, but they won't have that threat passing threat out of the tight end position like they had in Kyle Pitts. You're not replacing Kyle Pitts. Now, can you get a combo of, Kamori Gamble and Keon Zipperer from the pure tight end position, and then somebody like Justin Shorter to help with the replacing the receiving portion of a Kyle Pitts? Yeah, it's going to be a group effort to try and replace what Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney brought to the table. Florida's deep there. Shorter and Copeland lead the way as far as experience, and they'll have to find some other guys along the way to help bring it up. But it's been the same question the last couple of years. Hey, Florida's lost this group. Who's going to replace them? And they've been able to replace them. Let's see if they can do it again.
Because of Kyle Trask's ability to get the ball out of his hands, a lot of three-step drops, you mitigate the lack of an offensive line. Is it going to be more important than it's been in years for this offensive line to be a physical offensive line?
Absolutely, Mark. Dan Mullen can sit here and say all he wants to that, well, if we wanted to run the ball, we could run the ball. Nah, you couldn't. I mean, Florida struggled running the ball, putting games away last year. They'd get up big, and they'd have those leads versus Ole Miss. They'd have those leads versus South Carolina. They had those leads versus Kentucky and Tennessee. But you get to this, midway through the third quarter, fourth quarter, just couldn't put points on the board because they tried to run the ball. They tried to salt the clock away. They really just couldn't do it. So the teams would just kind of hang around. Florida still win by double digits. The game would never really be in jeopardy. But, probably if they could run the ball a bit better, those games would be a little bit more comfortable. You could get some backups in and get some reps that way. But, Florida's got to find a way, especially now with the shift in the offense. Yeah, pass blocking was okay at times last year. Gene Delance on that right side was probably the weak link in pass protection. They're hoping now with this shift in offense that Gene Delance at right tackle will be more of a force for this offensive line. And we'll see. They have pretty much worked out, Mark. Kingsley Igwekin's taken that center spot for the Gators this year. That's going to slide Stuart Reese over at right guard. Gene Delance will be at right tackle. Richard Garage, left guard. And Ethan White at left guard. Left guard. Richard Garage be at left tackle. So Florida's got a good starting five. Josh Braun would be the sixth guy filling out at the guard spot. But you got to find a way to run the ball better. Get these. Florida goes 5 deep at running back, and it's going to be led by the offensive line here. Problem with depth. Depth is a huge issue for this Gator offensive line. Like I said, you could just probably mention 6, 7 deep. They've got to find some depth. It's up to the youth on this Florida offensive line to finally show their faces, and then help this offensive line along the way. So I think they'll be better. John Hevesy knows this style of offense much better. I think it will benefit these guys instead of 3, 5 step drop for a quarterback. They'll actually be moving forward 40 times a game instead of backpedaling and pass blocking 40 times a game. I think now they'll be much more comfortable trying to run the ball, get a little mean streak in them, and help this Gator offense be led by them, because I think that's what's going to need to happen for this Gator offense to be successful.